Okay. All right. So this is just the outline of the talk for today. So I will just gonna briefly touch upon this RAS superfamily of GTP binding proteins, and then I'm gonna talk about the functions of the RF like GTPase that my lab is interested in understanding, and particularly this protein RL11, which belongs to this family. And then I will show you the work that we published showing how this protein might be involved in macrophage activation. So just to start with, the RAS superfamily is actually a very large protein family of small GTPases which are classified based on the sequence, structure, and different functions into these different kind of protein families like RAS family, Rho, RAP, ARS, and RAN. You must have heard of in your textbooks about this RAS GTPases, which are basically are shown to play a very important role in cell survival and growth. Similarly, the Rho GTPases have been shown to play a very important role in cytoskeletal organization and cell migration. And the most famous among these families actually the RAP proteins, which you must have heard in. Uh, uh, sorry, yeah. So, which are involved in membrane trafficking, that is a movement of the cargo within the cell between different compartments. And then comes these ARF like GTPases. Again, they are also very similar to RAP proteins. And just based on their structure and the kind of post-translation modification happens in these cells, in these proteins, they are classified into a different category. And then another small GTPase families is RAN GTPases, which are involved in the nuclear import and export of the proteins inside the nucleus, basically. So for today's talk, we'll focus on this RL family of GTPases, which my labs work on. So I just tell you very briefly what these proteins are. So these proteins belongs to they are a subfamily of ARF-like GTPases, and their structure, a typical structure is shown on the right hand side. Basically, they have two switches. Switch one, which is shown in magenta color, and switch two, which is in the blue color. And then they have a interswitch which connects these two domains in the of the protein. And once this, it is the interswitch region which gets conformationally changed when these proteins bind to GDP versus GTP. So basically, they can bind either to the guanosine diphosphate or to the GTP, guanosine triphosphate. And it is usually the GTP bound form, which is the active form. So you can see how the conversion of the interswitch or the movement takes place when they are bound with GDP versus GTP. So as I told you, they are present in two forms, which is the GDP bound form and the GTP. And it is usually the GTP bound form which is the active form. And when they are bound to GTP, then they are ready to engage with other proteins present around them, which are called as effectors. And then these effectors takes the function or carry out the downstream function of these proteins, basically. So in the human genome, currently there are 16 genes which encodes for RL proteins, and many of these GTPases have been shown to be conserved through eukaryotic evolution, indicating that they have a very important role in the biological system. However, most of these RL GTPases are still not characterized. So here is a slide showing what are the different GTP RL ARF-like GTPases present in the human cell. So as you can see that this is on the left hand side are their names, and you can see that most of them are not characterized yet. We don't know their function. And for today's talk, we'll focus on this protein RL11. So this RL11 protein is present in both humans and mouse, and we didn't knew before we started this study where do they localize in the cell and what is the function of this protein. So just to tell you something about something more about RL11. So as I told you, this belongs to the RAS superfamily of small GTPases, and there have, which is, as I told you, these GTPases have been shown to play a very important role in cell proliferation and vesicular trafficking. Very interestingly, when we started this study, there was only a couple of reports present in the literature showing that this particular gene, which encodes for this RL11 GTPase, is localized on this human chromosome 13 Q arm, which is often found to be either deleted or mutated in variety of human cancers. So this is what was earlier known when we started this study, that this gene somehow gets either deleted in variety of cancers, or there are number of mutations reported. These are studies based on the genome-wide association studies that I am quoting here. Moreover, there was only a 2 or 3 studies showing that RL11 behaves as a tumor suppressor by causing apoptosis of cancer cells and also increases the chemosensitivity. This was the first report on this protein which was published in New England Journal from a very big group in US. So what the group showed was, if you take this protein RL11 and express them in lung cancer cells, which is this cell line called as A549. On the top panel, you are seeing a Western blot, and the other name of RL11 that time was ARLTS1. So they are transfecting these cancer cells with this protein and then looking at the apoptosis rate. So you can see in the bottom left hand bar graph, they are measuring on y-axis apoptotic cell percentage, and you can see that as they are putting more RL11 into the cancer cells, there is increase in the apoptosis. So that's how they showed that this protein can act as a tumor suppressor. Further, what they did was they took the A549 cells. These cells have the capacity to make a very localized benign tumor when you put these cells into the nude mice. So then on the right hand side, you can see they have taken a tumor section, and they are telling you that as you are putting more protein RL11 in these tumor cells, their ability to make tumor inside the mice is decreased, again suggesting that RL11 behaves as a tumor suppressor. And also there was another piece of data which I am not showing it here. They showed that if you put RL11 back into the cancer cells and try to treat them with anti-cancer drugs, they become more sensitive, suggesting that this protein could act as a tumor suppressor. So having these information in mind, we started to study basically what is the physiological role of RL11. Because in the previous studies published so far, there was never any study showing what is the physiological role of RL11 in the context that they never looked at the cells where this protein is endogenously expressed. They were always ectopically expressing this protein. So the graduate student in the lab, Subhash, whose work I'm going to present today, he took the challenge and he asked the same question: what is the physiological role of RL11? It was quite interesting for us to study this protein. The reason being, it's a small GTPase, but at the same time, previous studies are highlighting its role as a tumor suppressor. So we really wanted to know how come a small GTPase can act as a tumor suppressor. So to answer this question, Subhash, who has graduated and now is currently a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Michigan in Carol Parent's lab, took the challenge and decided to study this protein. And let me tell you, the journey has not been so easy. As you will see, that the slides looks very easy to understand in terms of the data, but it was really big challenge to first understand where can we find RL11 in the cell. So to start this study, we actually looked at the transcript profile of this protein. Where is it expressed in different organs? So there was a study where these people did a northern blot and showed that actually there was a lot of transcripts of RL11 found in the immune organs like spleen and other bone marrow, as you can see here, marked by a red arrow. There is a database called as ImGen database, which is available to the researcher free, where people have done transcriptomic profiles of different genes in different immune cells. So there also we found that RL11 was there. And very interestingly, RL11 transcripts a lot of them were present in macrophages. So we thought that maybe macrophages might be the right cells to study them to see the function of this protein. So what we did first was to take different bunch of cultured cells as well as primary macrophages isolated from mice and try to see the expression of RL11, whether we can pick it or not. So now to do this, we actually first raised an antibody for RL11 in our lab. We took a N-terminal peptide of this protein, which was actually highly almost it was completely identical between human and mice. However, there is a size difference between mouse RL11 and human. And then we basically probe for the lysate to look at the expression of this protein. And you can see here, we are using this THP1 cells, which are monocytes. We have differentiated them into macrophages, and you can see the expression of human RL11 since it's a human cell line. Similarly, we took a bunch of mouse macrophage cell lines like raw cells, J774, as well as we isolated primary macrophages from the bone marrow, and you can see that RL11 is indeed expressed. So then the next question we ask is, where is RL11 localized in the cell? So we know the cell type now, but the next thing is, where is it there in the cell? So we know that in the cell there are different compartments, lysosomes, Golgi, nucleus. We wanted to see where does this protein reside, because if you know that, you can somehow try to make out what could be the function of this protein. This is a very typical approach that everybody uses. So we basically then, what we did, we took the macrophages and stained them with our antibody for RL11. Also, we stained the cells with a drug called as fluoridine, which stains the actin. So I think you can appreciate that this protein is present in the cytosol as shown in the green staining, as well as in the nucleus, and it was also co-localizing with the actin cytoskeleton, which is marked by fluoridine. We actually saw the same localization of this protein, which is nucleocytoplasmic, as well as on cortical actin structure, when we transfected cells or we took raw cells, another kind of macrophages. So we saw the same kind of staining, and just to confirm whether this staining is really true or not, we silence the expression of RL11 in these cells, and you can see that the staining of RL11 is lost, suggesting that it's quite a specific staining and not just an artifact of antibody binding to some other protein. So since it was a nuclear cytosolic protein, we decided to know whether it can shuttle between nuclear and cytosol. And to do that, basically what you can do a very simple live imaging kind of experiment called as FRAP, fluorescence recovery after photo bleaching. So what you do in these kind of experiments is that if you want to know whether a particular protein can diffuse in and out of that area, you can basically bleach that area first and then try to see the recovery of that protein into that region. So for these experiments, what we did, I'm just going to run this quick nuclear FRAP video. I hope it runs and you can then appreciate. Otherwise, our time scale images are shown on the right. So for nuclear FRAP, we first bleach the area in the nucleus. So these cells are expressing RL11, which is GFP tagged. So we first bleach the nucleus so that there is no signal, and then you see the recovery of the signal over time. So you can see here, as time is passing, the protein is getting back into the nucleus, suggesting that this protein can actively shuttle in and out of the nucleus, at least inside. Now we'll do the reverse experiment, where we did a cytosolic FRAP. We bleached the area in the cytosol and then try to see whether the protein can come out of the nucleus and recover that area. So here is a cytosolic FRAP. So we bleached this area, and you can see that over time there is a recovery. So this suggests that this protein actively shuttles in and out of the nucleus. So now coming to the macrophage story, which we then decided to pursue. So I told you so far, this protein is a nucleocytosolic protein. It is expressed in the macrophages. So then we thought, okay, how do we study the role of this protein in macrophages? So if there is a protein expressed in macrophages, the typical experiment, the first experiment actually that you do, you take the macrophages, you treat them with LPS, and then you activate the cells and see what happens to those cells. Now, if you want to see whether your gene has any particular role in that macrophage activation, you will silence its expression and then treat the cells with LPS, TLR4 ligand, which very strongly activates the macrophages, and then see whether the cells are getting activated or not. So this is what a typical macrophage activations different signaling event happens. So let's say there is a microbe which is gram negative, and also you can consider they have a lot of LPS on their outer membrane. When it sees a macrophage, it binds to the Toll-like receptor 4, which then activates a downstream signaling events, leading to the activation of macrophages. And this activation you can measure either by looking at the amount of cytokine being produced, or reactive nitrogen species, or you can also measure the phagocytic index of the macrophages. Since these cells eat up microbes, so their phagocytic activity overall increases. So you can check for all these things. So we decided to do the same experiment in the condition when we silenced RL11 in these cells. So we did the experiments both in cultured cells, which are these raw cells, as well as in primary cells, just to make sure that the effect that we are seeing is just not an artifact of cultured cells versus some random event. So all the experiments that I'm going to show you today, they were done simultaneously in cultured cells as well as in primary cells. So we silenced the expression of RL11 and then we asked what happens to the macrophage activation. So here is a typical macrophage cells. When you treat them with LPS for 24 hours, you can see this nice philopodia being made. They are enlarged in size and they basically looks very activated. Usually they are very round cells. They don't have too many projections. But this was quite surprising when we looked at the RL11 silence cells. This is how they look like. They were still very rounded, not much pseudopodia being formed, suggesting that the RL11 might play a role in macrophage activation. Actually, a more drastic effect we saw when we overexpress this protein. So here is a control cells on the left hand side. As I told you, this is how they look like. We overexpressed RL11 in these cells. Now you can see their morphology. They look super activated. So the silencing was making them inactive, whereas the overexpression is making them super active. All these were giving us an indication that this protein might play a role in macrophage activation. So once you find that there is some effect in macrophage activation, the first thing you need to check is whether your protein is inducible when you treat the macrophages with LPS or not, whether it's an LPS inducible protein gene expression or not. So we wanted to see whether RL11 its expression can be induced upon LPS challenge or not. Indeed, we found that once you treat the cells macrophages with LPS for different time points, there is an increase in the expression of RL11, as you can see in the second panel, and its longer exposure in the third panel. So we are treating the macrophages for different times, ranging from 10 to 30 to 1 hour. And INOS is a positive control in this experiment, whose expression is known to be regulated by LPS. Just a positive control in the assay. So you can see there was almost, I would say, twofold increase in the RL11 expression by 60 minutes of LPS treatment. So sometimes what happens is that macrophages can induce a gene irrespective of LPS. LPS could just be a trigger, but the LPS can lead to many other things like oxidative stress or ER stress. So then also the expression of your gene can be upregulated. So just to make sure whether it's a specific effect, we treated the cells with different compounds which can cause ER stress, like this particular compound, and as well as for oxidative stress, we treated the cells with hydrogen peroxide. So you can see that these stress, ER stress or oxidative stress, is not changing much of RL11 expression, whereas the positive controls in these experiments are working. For example, for ER stress, we took this ER protein CHOP, and you can see that its expression is induced. Similarly, for oxidative stress, we took a positive control heme oxygen. All this data suggests that LPS stimulation of RL11 expression is very specific, and it's not some kind of a stress-related phenomena. So as I told you that if you have a gene which is plays a role in macrophage activation, you can check whether the absence of that gene has any effect on the production of the pro-inflammatory cytokine. So we decided to look that as well. So we looked at first TNF alpha production as well as the IL-6 in these macrophages and treat them with LPS. The production of these important cytokines are basically decreased, again because the macrophages are not activated that much in the absence of RL11. We also measured the production of nitric oxide by using a grease reagent, and again we found that the RL11 silencing reduced or impaired the LPS induced nitric oxide production. So all this data suggests that RL11 absence in macrophages will make them inactive. So these data that I have shown you, they are done with the purified LPS, but that could not be the case because but sometimes it is better to do all these kind of experiments with actually by taking a microbe on its outer cell wall. You can see lot of LPS. So we have done same experiments, all these experiments you can see in our, and because of the limitation of the time, I thought that I will just restrict to one set of data. But if even if we just take we infect the cells with salmonella, we see the same kind of results. That is, the macrophages are not able to get activated upon salmonella challenge in when RL11 expression is silenced. So basically, so far I have told you that RL11 silencing impairs LPS stimulated macrophage effector function. So I showed you the data for cytokines, nitric oxide production. We also measured the phagocytic index, and it was again, as I was mentioning, we did the same set of experiment using salmonella as a model system besides using LPS, and we got the same kind of results. Now the question becomes how RL11 is regulating this LPS mediated macrophage activation. Well, to understand this, we thought to go back into the literature and see first how does LPS activates the macrophages. What are the signaling events that happens? So here is a schematic that shows this particular aspect of LPS TLR4 signaling. So TLR4 receptors are present on the outer membrane of the on the plasma membrane of a macrophage. And once they seize the LPS or bacteria containing LPS, they basically activate this MAP kinase signaling pathway, which you must have read in your test books, which are this ERK pathway, P38 pathway, and the JNK pathway. So toll-like receptor 4 C-terminal tail engages a lot of activating or adapter proteins, which activate this kinase RAF, which then phosphorylate its downstream kinase MEK1 and 2, which further then activates by phosphorylating ERK1 and 2. And this phosphorylated ERK1 and 2 can then, basically it's a kinase, it can activate a bunch of its target proteins, including this protein P90RSK, which is involved in protein synthesis. So overall, macrophage starts making a lot of proteins which are required for defense mechanism. Further, ERK1 and 2 can phosphorylate NF-kappa B, which is a very important transcription factor involved in immune activation. So NF-kappa B then goes to the nucleus, turn on the expression of a lot of cytokines which are involved in killing the bacteria or clearing the microbe. So similar to ERK, the RAF can also activate another MAP kinase pathway, the P38 pathway. Here the RAF activates the MKK36. Further, this MKK7 kinase. This kinase will again phosphorylate its downstream kinase GNK, and now the activated GNK can then regulate the expression of many genes involved in immune activation. So overall, this is a schematic of how LPS induces MAP kinase signaling. Sorry. So once the gene is, when these pathways are on, you can see a lot of pro-inflammatory cytokines being produced, nitric oxide. So all these molecules play a very important role in keeping the macrophages activated and in terms of when the macrophages lacks RL11. So how do we do these kind of experiments? So to do these experiments, what you do, you take wild type cells or macrophages, or you take macrophages lacking your gene of interest. In our case, it was RL11. And then we stimulated these cells with LPS or infected them with salmonella for different times. And then we prepared the lysate, you run it on the Western blot, and then you have antibodies specific to the phosphoforms of these kinases, ERK or P38 or GNK. Then you look at the signal of these kinases on the Western blot, and this will give you an idea whether your particular signaling pathway is activated or not. So we decided to do the same set of experiments. So we first looked at the phospho ERK level in the cells in macrophages lacking RL11. And this is what we found. So once you silence RL11, you can see that as we are stimulating the cells with LPS for different time points, the level of the phospho arc is not getting high compared to the control cells. Again, suggesting there is some impairment in the arc signaling pathway, which is quantified in the on the lower right hand side. Then we also looked at the P38 pathway. So again, same set of experiments. And again, we are looking for the phospho form of P38. And you can see in the control, the signal goes in unstimulated, there is no signal. As you treat with LPS, the signal goes up and then the signal comes down. However, in case of RL11 silencing, the induction of this phospho form is not that much. However, the total level remains the same, suggesting that there is an impairment in the P38 signaling as well, which is again quantified on the lower right side. Then we looked at the another one, the JNK, and we didn't find much change in the JNK phospho JNK levels being decreased in RL11 upon RL11 silencing. So you can compare the left hand side for the phospho JNK panel of control versus RL11, and you can see that there was not much change, and also the total levels were not changed. So these results suggest that basically LPS stimulated activation of ARC and P38 MAP kinases is substantially compromised in RL11 silenced macrophages. So if you remember, I showed you that schematic of the ARC and P38 activation. So LPS binds to TLR4, which then activates the upstream kinases. In case of ARC 1 and 2, it was MAC1 and 2. And in case of P38, it's MAC3 and 6. So we wanted to know where does RL11 is acting particularly. Is it the upstream kinase or is it particularly at ARC1 and 2 or P38? So what we did is basically we first looked at the downstream of ARC as well as this downstream target of ARC, which is P90 RSK, which also gets phosphorylated when ARC is activated. And we also looked at MAC1 and 2 and MAC3 and 6 doing the same set of experiments. So this is what we found. As expected in RL11 silencing, the phospho P90 RSK was down regulated. As you can see, it's on the Western blot. It is not getting activated, which makes sense because its upstream kinase is already affected, ARC1 and 2. The results are quantified on the right hand side. We also looked at MAC1 and effect on the phosphorylation status of MAC1 and 2. This suggests that particularly ARC1 and 2 phosphorylation is affected in RL11 silencing. We also looked at the phospho form of MKK3 and 6, and again the blots are not that great for this particular kinase because the antibody was not so helpful. But again, we could see that there was not much, whatever signal we could detect with this antibody, there was not much change in phospho MKK3 and 6, and the total levels were also unaffected, suggesting that basically this RL11 silencing is specific for the ARC and the P38, whereas the upstream and upstream kinases are not affected. We also did the same set of experiments using Salmonella, as I told you, and we found the same results, that the RL11 silencing inhibits Salmonella-induced ARC and P38 activation, but not of JNK. So now we decided to focus on this ARC kinase, since it was getting affected and its also substrate was getting affected. So to know how RL11 might be engaging ARC in this pathway, we decided to first check from the literature where does ARC localizes in the cell. So there was a couple of studies, and this one was particularly interesting, where it was shown that in microglia cells, which are kind of a macrophages in the brain, immune cells of the brain, there they are staining for phospho ARC in the red channel, you can see there, and the actin is stained in the green channel with the fluoridine. And it was found that actually ARC is also there at the actin structures, just like what we saw for RL11. Also, it has a nuclear and cytosolic signal. So, but let me just tell you, there are other literature also where people have shown that ARC is specifically there on the actin structure also and cytosol, but not much in the nucleus. But that could be because of the cell type that people are studying. But at least this gave us an idea that phospho ARC or the activated form of ARC is basically mimicking the localization pattern very similar to RL11. So what we did, we co-stained RL11 with ERK to see whether these two protein co-localize together and where do they co-localize if that happens to be the case. So we found that, as you can see in this uh, green channel, that RL11 actually is co-localizing very nicely with ERK, shown in the red channel. And these two proteins actually are very nicely present on the actin cytoskeleton as well, beneath the plasma membrane, which is basically cortical actin. So this gave us an idea that these two proteins are in very close proximity, and they are at the same location, and their presence at the cortical actin will also give them a chance to engage in the signaling pathway, since they are very close to the plasma membrane. So then we asked this question: can RL11 can interact with ERK or not? So to do this, we did a very typical co-IP experiments where you take a cell lysate and pull down one of your protein of interest using a specific antibody to it, and then check in the immunoprecipitate your protein of interest whether those signals are present or not. So here is a Western blot from that particular experiment. So I want you to focus on this red box which I have highlighted. So you can see here we are immunoprecipitating RL11. These are control cells, as well as we have treated the macrophages with LPS for 10 minutes. So the lowest panel, you can see that RL11 is getting immunoprecipitated in both the cases. And as we are treating the cells with LPS, you can see that the phospho ERK as well as total ERK is also getting immunoprecipitated. However, we didn't find P38 in this complex or JNK. So it looks like RL11 is specifically interacting with ERK and not with the JNK or P38 kinase. We also try to see whether this interaction of phospho ERK with RL11, whether it depends upon the cytoskeleton of the cell or not. So if you remember my previous slide, we found these two proteins co-localizing on the cortical actin, and you can actually disrupt the cortical actin by treating the cells with a compound called as cytoclasin D, which is an inhibitor of actin polymerization. So we did the same set of experiment in the presence of cytoclasin D. So I want you to just focus on this red box. You can see that we are immunoprecipitating RL11, and then looking in the complex where the cells are treated with either control or they are control cells, LPS treated, or cytoclasin D. And you can see that the immunoprecipitation of phospho ERK is completely lost when we treat the cells with cytoclasin D. This data hints that the RL11 interaction with ERK actually requires intact actin cytoskeleton. And from the previous data, we can say that RL11 specifically interacts with ERK and not with other JNK or P38 kinase. We further corroborated our findings that the phospho form of ERK is interacting with RL11 specifically by doing another set of experiment, which is shown here. So already the phosphorylation sites of MEC1 and 2 on ERK is known, which is threonine 185 and tyrosine 187. So we mutated these sites to alanine so that the ERK does not get phosphorylated. And then we did an experiment of taking the wild type ERK as well as this phospho deficient mutant of ERK and immunoprecipitated RL11. And you can see that only wild type of ERK is getting immunoprecipitated in the top panel, whereas the phospho deficient mutant of ERK is not getting immunoprecipitated with RL11, again suggesting that the RL11 specifically interact with the phosphorylated form of ERK. So now, just to put everything in the in a summary, this is what we can say about RL11. Basically, RL11 modulates the inflammatory response in macrophages. The binding of the bacterial LPS to macrophages via TLR4 increases intracellular RL11 expression, which in turn promotes RL11 mediated phosphorylation and activation of ERK1 and 2, thus leading to the production of pro-inflammatory mediators such as TNF alpha and IL-6. So this is the overall summary of the work that we published, and currently what we are doing it in the lab is basically to now understand what are the proteins which might help in facilitating or making the binding of RL11 strongly with the phosphorylated form of ERK. So to answer these questions, what we have done in the lab and we are following up on it is basically we are trying to find the interactome of RL11 from macrophages and to see whether we find any protein that can link RL11 with ERK. We have already done some preliminary experiments, and we already know that RL11 does not directly bind to ERK. So there has to be a mediator which will help in binding of these two protein. It could be a scaffolding, a protein, an adapter protein, which brings all the signaling together, a scaffold-like protein. And in some of our mass spec data, we have found some of this adapter proteins, and we are pursuing them and seeing how they can bring together RL11 and ERK together in macrophages and can lead to the macrophage activation. With this, I just come to the most important slide. This is the current lab, and the work that I showed you was primarily done by Subhash, who is now a postdoctoral fellow and has moved on to the new position. And I would like to acknowledge the funding from Wellcome Trust as well as from CSIR. And with that, I will take any questions that you have, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Amit sir, for such an insightful talk. So I think now it's time for question answer session. So maybe you can start interacting with Dr. Amit, or if you're facing any technical issues, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box. We can just have an answer with that. Yeah. So you can unmute yourself and ask questions to Dr. Amit.
Okay. Hi, Amit.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, that was an excellent talk. Thank you very much. Because our students have only been hearing about cellular immunology. It was great that you could actually show them what happens in a research lab. Thanks to you for that. So my question is regarding the macrophage stimulation experiment that you were talking about. So you did mention this, that LPS, does its purified LPS versus Salmonella might show a different pattern when you're doing cell culture. But in physiological conditions, does the strength of macrophage activation differ based on what immune challenges it faces?
Yes. So again, it depends upon so it's still a conundrum because actually many macrophages, they have many microbes. They have different ability to activate macrophages to different extent depending upon whether they want to reside in that macrophage for a longer time versus they are just there for a couple of hours and then will eventually get out of the cell. For example, in case of MTB really likes to stay inside the macrophages, and in that case, the macrophage activation is not that high. Whereas Salmonella is not able to cope up too much in macrophage environment, and they generate much more potent immune response and are eventually killed, or basically the cell burst out because of high replication rate, and they are able to microbe that you are using in your experiments for challenging the macrophages. So the response could be different based on the kind of microbe you are using. So in our case, besides using the LPS, we actually infected the cells with the live Salmonella. Because Salmonella also has a lot of LPS on its outside membrane. So just to be sure that this is something happening in a physiological context and not just a chemical induced phenomena like LPS, we took the whole bug and then infected them with macrophages lacking RL11 versus control, and we saw the same kind of results which I showed you today. And just because of lack of time, I didn't presented them, but we do see that even Salmonella. So if you silence RL11 and infect with Salmonella, Salmonella replicates much more compared to control cells because the macrophages are inactivated. They are not able to induce many of the pathways which are involved in clearing of the bacteria.
Okay. And my second question is, do your group or anyone else looked at what other does AR11 interact with other GTPases or other proteins, like apart from the ERK-MAPK pathway that you were presenting about? as in a large
Yeah,
scale
so
video analysis? Has it been done?
not yet. There are only so far the studies that are present about RL11 are basically either genome-wide association studies or the study that I showed you.
Okay.
But not much proteomic studies have been done. But that is something that my group is already doing,
Okay.
and we have some idea now how this RL11 might be linking the ERK signaling pathway. So we have found a scaffold protein which is actually present very close to the actin cytoskeleton. I can just tell you the name as well. It's called as IQ-GAP1. It's a big scaffold protein involved in basically bringing all the signaling MAP kinases signaling molecules at a common platform so that the signaling happens fast. So we think that RL11 recruits IQ-GAP1 and which then binds to or helps in the assembly of the ERK signaling pathway.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hi, sir. So I have a doubt. Like in the first part of the presentation, you showed that RL11 is involved in tumor suppression and
Yeah.
all, but in the later part, you showed that it is involved in LPS-mediated ERK activation and on the immune response.
Yeah.
So how the tumor suppressor part is then linked?
Well, Harish, I was really expecting this question from you, and I mean from your from the audience, and I'm glad that you asked this. So this was always a conundrum for for both me and Subhash when we were doing these studies. That how come a protein that previously been shown to be a tumor suppressor is now doing is involved in ERK activation. So if you remember from your test book, actually ERK is a cell promoting or cell growth promoting factor. So if you treat the cells with growth factors like EGF, the ERK signaling gets upregulated, and that signaling has shown to play a very important role in cell growth. But here we are showing that RL11 is actually controlling the ERK activation. So now, so what we found, and this is something that we are pursuing, and now we are putting these pieces together, how RL11, which regulates ERK signaling, might also act as a tumor suppressor. So maybe I will just go back to my PowerPoint again and just show you one slide. I kept it especially for this because I knew it's gonna come out. This is still work in progress. Can you see the slide?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, so this is still the work in progress, but we know the answer to this, the question that you asked. So this is a typical ERK signaling pathway. You give a ligand like EGF, it binds to the EGFR receptor, and then it activates the RAF kinase, which will activate MEK1 and 2, which will activate then ERK1 and 2. Now ERK1 and 2 has been shown in the literature that if you transiently activate the ERK, actually it is involved in the cell growth. What I mean by transient is, as you can see in this graph, there is a upregulation and then there is a downregulation of the ERK signaling. And this whole process is involved in protein synthesis. Also, the same transient ERK activation can activate the transcription factors and helps in protein synthesis. And this whole pathway then leads to the cell proliferation. This is what is known. However, if you keep the ERK activated for a very long time, which is called as sustained ERK activation, this is what happens, that your cells undergo apoptosis. So there is a two-phase of ERK function. One is a transient activation where it is involved in cell proliferation. However, the same ERK, if you keep it activated for a very long time, which is called as sustained ERK activation, then in that case, it is shown very clearly. There are a couple of many studies actually showing that in that case, that particular cell, instead of growing, it actually undergoes apoptosis because it thinks that there is something wrong. The signal is not getting down regulated, so it takes it towards the apoptosis pathway. So now coming back to RL11, so we did a same kind of experiment. I didn't show that in the slides, but I thought that this will make more, emphasis here. So what we did, we took again the same A549 cells which the authors show. Remember I showed you that data where they were doing the ectopic transplantation of the cancer cells ectopically expressing RL11. We took the same cells and then we treated them with this EGF for different time points, and you can see that it gets activated and then phospho-ERK signal, and then by 60 minutes, it is coming back to the basal level. If you do the same set of experiments now in A549 cells overexpressing or ectopically expressing RL11, this is what we found. So you can see that as you basically activate them with EGF, the level of the phospho arc is not getting down regulated over time. It is like a sustained arc activation. So this is just a quantification of the same plots, again showing you that the RL level introduction into the cancer cells induces sustained arc activation in response to the EGF. So this explains how RL11 can work in two different ways in cancer cells versus in macrophage activation. So when you have a cancer cell scenario and you have RL11 acting as a tumor suppressor, most likely it is keeping the arc in the sustained activation state, which leads to the apoptosis, and that's how its tumor suppressor function is defined. Whereas in case of macrophages, what we found is there was an upregulation and then a downregulation of the signaling. So it was a transient activation, which makes sense because otherwise macrophages will die out if the signaling is not downregulated. So I think the answer to your question is basically depending upon the context where you are studying RL11. But this can give you an idea that the state of the signaling in the two different cell types might define their functions.
Okay, thank you.
I hope this was clear.
Yeah, I have one question here. So GTPases generally are regulated by GEFs and GAPs, right? So in this case, do you know what GEFs are important for RL11 regulation?
Yeah, so for every GTPase lab, identifying the gaps and gaps is kind of a big discovery, and we have been trying to identify the gaps and gap for this particular GTPase. But so far, we found some of the candidate hits by doing a mass spec where we actually logged this GTPase in the GDP bound form versus GTP bound form. You can do some point mutants so that this particular GTPase will show a morphology or a structure which is GDP bound versus GTP. And we then did some mass spec using these locked proteins. And so far we got a couple of hits. We have tried them, but so far we are not being able to identify them. We have identified a lot of effectors, lot of interaction partners for RL11, but not the gaps and gaps so far. But that's something we really want to also identify. And it makes sense because those proteins might be actually playing a very important role in regulating the cycling of this protein between GDP versus GTP, and then regulating the overall function of this protein.
Yeah. So the second question was related to that. So the interaction with phospho, is it the GTP bound state or GDP? I mean, it must be hard to tell that, but what do you think? Is it the activated?
Yeah, so this is the question that one of the reviewers of our manuscript also asked us, whether it's specific to GTP versus GDP. Okay. So in our hands, we didn't find much difference between GTP versus GTP bound form of RL11, its interaction with phospho arc. But I can tell you a few things which is different for RL GTPases versus other GTPases like RAPs. So these GTPases tend to remain more in the GTP bound form in the cell compared to the GTP bound form. So even though we didn't find much difference, but it could be that in the cellular context, maybe it is mostly the GTP bound form because the concentration of active form of this particular GTPase is more in the cell compared to the inactive form. But in our in vitro experiment of OIP, we didn't find much difference in the interaction between the GTP versus GTP bound form.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Why the intact cytoskeleton is so much important for the interaction of ERK12 and RL11?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So cytoskeleton will basically what does is like it keeps the cells in the right shape and maintains the overall organization of the cell. So cortical actin is basically an actin present just beneath the plasma membrane, and you will find all the signaling receptors at the plasma membrane. So these actin cytoskeleton or the cortical actin, they kind of make micro domains on the close to the beneath the plasma membrane where all the signaling receptors get clustered. They get organized. So if you disrupt that whole area, then there will be some effect on the signaling, because the proteins will not be able to come close together, or they might not be present in the close proximity to each other to relay the signaling events. So that could be the reason.
And what if the LPS or whatever infection, the immune stress?
I'm
what
sorry.
if that
I'm sorry, Anish. Can you say that?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you.
So what I'm telling, the immune attack or whatever LPS, something that if that breaks the particular cell, then will this
Anish,
somehow
your
it will.
voice is breaking. I can't hear you. Can you
Yeah, Anish,
speak a
can
bit
you?
louder?
I think my network problem is there. I'll write the message. Okay.
Anish,
Yeah, you can write. Yeah.
Anish,
So
you
I
may
see a
write.
question from Saurabh. Uh, yeah. So the Saurabh is asking that you have told that RL11 interact with ERK after binding with LPS containing bacteria to the receptor, but how RL11 upregulated by LPS on its receptor? So we know, so far what we know is that RL11 is an LPS inducible gene, and already there are a lot of transcription factors which are known to be translocated into the nucleus upon LPS stimulation of macrophages. So as such, we don't know which of these transcription factors might be involved in RL11 upregulation, but definitely we know that it is an LPS inducible gene. So, but there are already a lot of I forget, there was already a big transcriptome profiling of from macrophages using different transcription factors, and we did see some of these transcription factors like NF kappa B and many other. They had RL11 in their whole gene list. So most likely it could be NF kappa B. If I remember, I didn't present it here, but I think it was one of the transcription factors where which can regulate RL11 gene expression was NF kappa B. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Anish, if you want to ask your question again, I can help it out.
So, if any more questions, you can just ask.
Uh, I think there is one question in the chat box.
Yeah. So here is a question from Vinayak. He's saying, since LPS is an immune system activator, can there be other immune activators that can upregulate the expression? Yeah, there are many other TLR ligands. We didn't check them, but yes, there are many ligands for TLR7, TLR9, but those are mainly for intracellular or microbes, or things like viruses, which release their RNA and DNA, and which are then get recognized by these intracellular signaling receptors. In our case, we used LPS because we also did some experiments with the salmonella, which we know first gets seen by TLR4, and that's why we pursued the LPS and to see whether it has any role in RL11 biology. But I haven't looked at any other stimulator for looking at the effect on RL11 expression or its function. Not yet.
So, as Anish is facing some network issue, he will get back to you, sir.
Sure, no issue.
Yeah. So, so before winding up this session, if anybody have any questions.
Yeah, so
Sir, there
I
is some
see
questions.
another question from, yeah. Um, in the context of R11 interactors, have you explored some metabolites of small molecules? Because there are a lot of reports of metabolic modulation in macrophage activation. Well, there are so many things to do, and I really like this idea, but we haven't looked at any of the metabolites or small molecules that could play a role in macrophage activation. But I think there are already a lot of studies available. But yes, this area of metabolomics and macrophage activation is something which is really quite interesting at these days. Yeah, but I haven't looked at it. So there is a question that, hi Amit, which ERK site is phosphorylated by upstream? So as I told you, we don't think it is ERK. We don't think it is RL11 which is phosphorylating ERK. It could be that it is interacting with the phosphorylated form of ERK as the data suggests. So we already know that the ERK gets activated by MEK kinase. And the site for that is already, I think threonine 185 and tyrosine 187 on ERK. It's already been known for a very long time in the literature.
So, yeah, one more question.
So is there any mass spec data or SDM data suggested sites? So we actually picked up these sites based on what is already known about ARC1. So ARC is already known to be phosphorylated by MEK kinase at threonine 185 and tyrosine 187. It's well studied. There are very old studies available, but as such, any mass spec data I don't remember. But these are very canonical sites which are already known in the literature for at least for ARC and even for P38 and JNK, because we can make a specific phospho-specific antibodies using peptides, phosphomimetic peptides for these sites.
So I guess it's time to conclude the session, maybe. So thank you, Amit sir, for being with us. It was a pleasure having you. Oh, one more question. Yeah.
Yeah. What are the cell cycle downstream regulated by ERK? So there is this P21. I think I showed it in my. I just bring it up. I think this particular cyclin D1 expression is regulated by ERK, which and then it also activates this P21 transiently. So these are the cell cycle regulators being activated by ERK activation.
So I hope we can conclude the session here. It's pleasure to have you here, sir. Thank you for
There are
having.
another question from Rupsa Dotto.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
It's the last one, I think.
Yeah. So I don't. Is there any another one? Okay. Yeah. So I am a PhD student. So for now, my question is: have there been experiments done on others where similar traces of RL11? Before our study, the only studies available, if you look into PubMed for RL11, is basically in cancer cells only, where RL11 role or I mean, it's been characterized to act as a tumor suppressor in different cancer cells, their cancer types. So this is what was known before we published our study. So our study for the first was the first one to show the physiological function of this protein. So these are the only studies available. Yeah, it's a very one of the least characterized proteins, and that's why we thought to start with this, because it also had a cancer angle to it. And we were very excited to know how a small GTPase can be a tumor suppressor also. So yeah, so this is what is known so far about this protein. Has there been a conclusive you study that P38 pathway regulated by R11 is not activated. So all these MAP kinases, they also have a feedback loop system. So once kinase is activated, it tries to control the other kinase activation. In our case, we found both ERK and P38 were affected, but not JNK. But when we did our pull down experiments, we never saw P38 in the complex. So we think that it could be that the P38 activation which is getting affected, it could be through the ERK pathway, it's through its feedback loop system. So we haven't seen P38 ever getting interacting with RL11 at all in our studies.
So, Gokul.
I guess it's actual time to conclude the session, maybe. So once again, thank you so much, sir, for being with us. It was really wonderful to have you here. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, and yeah, it was a good exercise for me to also present, and I am very happy that the kind of questions that came from the students, it tells you that you guys are doing very well, and I wish you all best of luck in your studies, and the kind of faculties you guys have, I am pretty sure you are in very good hands. So my best wishes to all of you, and thanks again for the invitation.
All right. Thanks a lot, Abid.
Yeah, hope to see you here very soon, sir.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
Thank you all. Stay tuned with Lavida. We have another talk coming up very soon. Stay tuned with Lavida. Stay excited. Yeah, keep up with us. Thank you, Dr. Amit, once again. Thank you, everyone, for having with us. Thank you so much.